The EPZ Q1 Pro is the most consistent EPZ IM that I have ever tried. But is that for the better? Today we're going to be talking about the EPZ Q1 Pro and what makes it a very nice set if you really like vocals, but also a set that you might not really like if you've tried a lot of the IMs that have been released in the last 2 years. Let's talk about the Q1 Pro. Big thanks to EPZ for sending over the Q1 Pro. I was not compensated in any way, so rest assured all my thoughts and opinions are of my own and I was not told to say anything about the product. So EPZ is a brand that a lot of you are probably already familiar with, again, as I've released a review of the Q5 Pro a few weeks ago. But it's also a brand known for being rather consistent when it comes to the quality of their products, particularly in the tuning segment. A lot of them follow the HARMAN 2019 target for the better or worse. And that's what I really wanted to find out with the Q1 Pro. Is it like another just carbon copy of the Q5 that came before it? Or is this offering something different? Let's start with the unboxing experience. The unboxing experience of the Q1 Pro is basic. The Q1 Pro is housed in a black box with the inclusions laid out in a straightforward way. The Q1 Pro comes with the IMs themselves, a basic cloth carrying pouch, ear tips, and some paperwork. The unboxing experience reminds me of the EW200, but in a slightly less ergonomic box. It's not really a very fruitful inclusion set, but at the very least the inclusions are usable. As for build and fit, the Q1 Pro features a single PU plus LCP dynamic driver housed in a resin shell with a 0.78mm 2-pin connector. The faceplate of the Q1 Pro is genuinely one of the prettiest faceplates I've seen at this price range. The marbled sky blue look fits the Q1 Pro's elegant shape that makes it quite distinct from other resin shells in this market. But arguably the best thing about the Q1 Pro's physical features is its fit. This is, by far, the best fitting and most comfortable IM I've worn under $100. Previous set that took the spot, which was the Wyvern, which while technically was more stable than the Q1 Pro, started to get painful over long listening sessions. The Q1 Pro has the seal, stability, and initial comfort of the Wyvern Pro without the long-term pain, which makes it arguably the most comfortable and best-fitting IM that I've tried under $100 by far. The resin material is also not cheap whatsoever and is sturdy enough for me to be comfortable being rowdy with it. For the cable, it is very aesthetically pleasing braided cable that is unfortunately a little stiff and tangle prone. I would have personally preferred a little softer and a little bit more malleable, but it's not a bad cable whatsoever. If you're into good looking cables, well, this is one of the better ones to get in my opinion. So as for the sound, it is bog standard HARMAN in every single way. The bass, it's there, it's present when you need it to be, but it's very clean and tight. The mids, very open, very clean, but also on the leaner and drier side, with the upper mids being quite forward, very energetic, very nuanced, but on the shoutier side and the treble being surprisingly well extended, that isn't overly airy or dark sounding. And as a single DD, the timbre is pretty consistent all throughout, but refinement, which I'm going to be talking about in the technicality section, is definitely something that could have been smoothened out a little bit more, but for $40, it's respectable, especially with this kind of tuning. As for drivability, it is easy to drive. Not much more to say about that besides it scaling pretty well. Honestly, I don't think that it sounds worse any off in cheaper devices or in more expensive devices, but it just sounds, once again, pretty consistent even in, cheaper sources. So enjoy this in your smartphone devices, although definitely if you want a better experience, improve your sources. That's just logic. And as for volume, the Q1 Pro wants mid to low listening volumes. The upper mids definitely get a little shouty, but that also means that by default, the nuances in the upper mids and the treble is very well defined, very snappy, very sharp, at the cost of low-end note weight and impact, as I'm going to be talking about very soon. So starting with the bass, it's there. I don't think that it's boosted in any unnatural way. The low end, the super low end, the sub bass is definitely the highlight of this. When it really calls for it, it really calls for it. It's very satisfying for any sub bass or deep sub kind of tracks, especially in electronic music, but it keeps the rest of the bass signature pretty clean. I didn't really find any muddiness or boominess in the overall sound, which, you know, a lot of people appreciate that kind of sound, but personally I want a little something more thick, especially in the mid bass, which is the weakest part of the bass of the Q1 Pro. It lacks tactility and punchiness that I usually look for. And it's really not that engaging to listen to when it comes to R&B and stuff. So listening to my usual library, not really that good. But if you listen to something that has, you know, a little bassy already by default and needs to be toned down, think something like Hey Barbara by Four of Spades, or Where Have You Been My Disco. This IM sounds really good, especially when presenting that bass line in the really early parts of the songs, and it just sounds amazing on this IM. Moving on to the mid-range, the mids of the Q1 Pro is HARMAN! Yeah, let's go! So, thin lower mids, very energetic upper mids. I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing though, okay? It is a preferential thing. I know a lot of people like that scooped lower mids to give that open, very clean sense in the lower mid-range that just sounds clean. Like, it's simply just clean. It's very open. I'm repeating myself here, but that's really it. Like, it's very... The note definition is the most surprising thing about the Q1 Pro, I will say. I expected it sound really distant, especially a lot of HARMAN sets that I've listened to in the past, but the Q1 Pro, it defines the notes in the lower mid-range pretty well. So male vocals, lower octave instruments, it sounds like it's there. It doesn't sound pushed back, it just sounds thin, but it's there. But definitely the highlight is the upper mids. Goodness, this is an amazing set when it comes to vocal-centric tracks. Obviously, if you're shout-sensitive, this might not be for you, but if you really like really forward-sounding upper mid-range, especially for female vocals or just like instruments that are living in this region, this is an amazing set. A lot of nuance, a lot of detail, a lot of character, but, you know, definitely on the edgier, on the pusher side, on the up there kind of side, that you might find it a little egregious and shouty on certain tracks. But I personally really like this kind of upper mids, and I just enjoyed my listening experience, especially when it comes to instrumentals and vocal-centric tracks. And as for the treble, surprisingly smooth. I didn't really experience any sibilance or sharpness in the overall sound, but it is bright, it is forward, it is elevated, but surprisingly well extended. That's not unrealistically so, because I found that a lot of HARMAN sets in this price range, they want to either force out the upper treble a little bit so it gives that really sparkly sense that kind of sounds a little irritating over long listening sessions, but the Q1 Pro does not have that, and it sounds naturally rolled off but still well extended. It is decently sharp, decently snappy, but not overly so to give it a very sibilant or unrealistic or even metallic kind of tone. Moving on to the technicalities, it's just about average. In all, it's not really the most technical set, especially in this price point where the EW200 exists. We're going to talk about more of that later, but it's respectable. Separation and layer, pretty good. Imaging and stage, not so much. Head stage, decent. Depth stage, a little bit compressed in the overall sound. Imaging, decent, not really holographic, not pinpoint, but it's more than just 2D, more than just left and right, so I can appreciate that. Dynamics definitely could be improved, and resolving ability definitely could be improved as well, but for $40, I wouldn't say it's the bottom of the barrel kind of technicalities. I would just say it's average. It lives up to its price point. Nothing much to complain here, especially with that kind of tuning that is, you know, on the HARMAN thinner side, so you might expect it to be a little bit better than a lot of the $20 sets that have come out in the last few years. Compared to the SimGot EW200, the EW200 is a more technical, more engaging, and more lively sounding IM overall, and has a more impactful low end, better note weight, and more crisp and well separated overall sound. The best selling point of the Q1 Pro is the fit, which is more stable, better sealed, and just overall more comfortable than the EW200. Compared to the EPZ Q5, the Q5 follows a very similar trend with the EW200 compared to the Q1 Pro, but the Q5 is a safer IM overall, as the Q5 is prone to sounding a little sharp and too hot compared to the Q1 Pro. The Q1 Pro also has better and more stable fit compared to the Q5. However, the Q5 is overall better performer and value over the two, with a better overall technical ability for the Q5 and a more engaging and punchy low end. Compared to the Julianao King Luan Z4, the Z4 has a more mid-centric overall sound with a safer upper treble tuning and a leaner bass presentation, but sounds very similar to the Q1 Pro in some ways. Both are upper mid-range focus sets with the lean lower mids and a realistic treble roll-off. The main difference lies with the Q1 Pro having a more engaging and more punchy low end and being less prone to shout compared with the Z4, but the Z4's upper vocals are more forward and energetic due to the lack of low end impact. They have very similar technical chops, but I found the Z4 to be slightly more technically capable than the Q1 Pro. And lastly, compared to the EW100P, two sets that perform at a surprisingly similar level for half the price. The EW100P sounds less refined and technical overall, but the overall tuning is almost 90% of the Q1 Pro in my ears. This could be due to the fact that they follow a very similar target, but both sets are identical in terms of tuning and are only separated by a very slightly more refined sound for the Q1 Pro. So to finally conclude, the EPZ Q1 Pro is a very consistent set in the EPZ discography. The Q5 in particular follows a similar trajectory to the Q1 Pro, but you can really see the differences in the overall tonal quality as well as the technical ability, as the Q5 is insanely technical while the Q1 Pro is definitely more generous and just a bit average overall. But definitely the highlight of this for me is that insanely good fit and seal that honestly makes me want to take this out on just going out, because I really find this to be an extremely comfortable IAM. That cable too, very aesthetically pleasing, a little stiff, but I honestly completely fine with that if it looks this good. But I would definitely use this with something more versatile in terms of cables. But I thought this IM was nice. A lot of things to like about this, as I usually would say, but definitely not for the shout sensitives and definitely not for the HARMAN haters who want more thick kind of sound. But the Q1 Pro is a solid inclusion in the EPZ lineup and a pretty good contender under $50. So, nice. Thank you so much for watching my review on the EPZ Q1. If you like this video, consider giving me a like. If you like my content, subscribe. Check out my socials, check out the Discord, check out Audio Notions, join Forsaken Audiophiles. And with that, obodio out.